So then we're all in this classroom, and the guy that is in there is doing our briefing, which means he went over like how to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork, our medical history, like basically you put no on everything unless it was something that you already told your recruiter, like if you had any major surgeries or stayed overnight in a hospital for something, or if you had asthma. Like there's so many yeses or no's, so you're just like checking. They will repeatedly ask you the same questions over and over and over, so basically your answers just have to be consistent all day, and they have to be consistent with what you told your recruiter. For example, the girl next to me, she was 17. She started to get a little freaked out about something, and she kind of said something to me about maybe changing her answer. She said, oh, I used an inhaler once, like 2 years ago. She's like, I don't have asthma, that's not why I got it. Whatever, she started telling me this stuff, and I was like, I don't even want to be a part of this. I said, first of all, you should have told your recruiter that. Second of all, now you're changing your answer today. I said I wouldn't do that. But like if you're going to, since now you have this information that you have to tell them, I was like, you're not going to swear in today. I told her that. And she decided that she was going to change her answer and say that she had this inhaler at some point. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified for her, because this is all you hear about is like, they get you to like tell them something that, I don't know. I didn't want any part of this. I just wanted to make it through Meps. Basically, I saw her 2 or 3 more times throughout the day, and every time I saw her, she was sobbing. I felt so bad for her. I wanted to go over and hug her. Oh my gosh, that poor girl, because they stopped her processing. I don't know what happened to her. Like, you're not with the same people all day. There's not like one specific line. Like, they're moving you all over the place, especially me, where I had to do like double what everybody else had to do, because they had already been there once or twice. They already did their Asvab. This was my first time there, and nobody usually does the Asvab and the physical all in one day. It's usually broken up into 2 days. So I was busy. Like, I was bouncing all over the place, in front of people, behind people, whatever. So anyways, that's just a side note. Make sure you tell your recruiter what they need to know. And when you go to Meps, make sure that whatever you tell them is the same thing you told your recruiter, especially if you only want to go to Meps once or twice, and why would you want to go back any more than you have to? Okay, so we got our medical briefing, we did all of that. While we were filling out our paperwork, there was a doctor that came in. He was actually the same one who did my blood pressure, and he walked around to each desk and gave us a breathalyzer. I had never done a breathalyzer, so that was an experience, I guess. You have to blow super hard. If you don't, you're gonna run out of breath. He's gonna make you do it again. So I just did it once. The guy who was doing the briefing, the Air Force staff sergeant, he came up and like looked at my paperwork again, and he's like, oh, I already did yours for the breathalyzer. He's like, you're the one that was drunk. I'm like, why is everybody messing with me? Also, my last name is Willis, so I think I got like 5 or 6 times that day, what you talking about, Willis? And I was like, already heard that today, thank you though. So after we were done with the medical briefing, a man came in and was like, who are all my testers for the day? So I raised my hand, we all lined up outside the door, and then he took us to the testing center. So I was like, finally. The medical briefing took a long time. It was like an hour and a half, I think. Like I said, I didn't know what time it was. So we got to the testing center, and it wasn't until I was like halfway done with my Asvab that I noticed that there was a clock. And I remember them saying that they were serving lunch from 11 to 1, and that's pretty much the time frame of when I took my Asvab. So I was like, that's nice. Guess I'm not having lunch. And we had breakfast at what, like 5 in the morning. So at this point, it was already almost 11 when I noticed that there was a clock, and I was like, shoot, like lunch is starting soon, and this test takes 2 or 3 hours, so probably not eating lunch. So I did my Asvab. The Asvab sucks. It was my second time taking it. I had taken it like 8 years ago when I first wanted to join the Air Force, so I was dreading it because I already knew how long and tedious it was. But I actually studied. I studied for about 2 weeks. I'm gonna grab the book I used and show you guys because obviously it helped. I'll tell you in a second what I got. So here is the book that I ordered on Amazon. This is the one I used to study for my tests. And I got this book because it had really good reviews online. Everyone said that when they studied it, they pretty much like doubled their score, or they always had an increase in their score. So I got this book, and I think it was pretty expensive. It was like $25, but it's worth it. I wanted to score as high as I could because that opens up as many jobs as possible. So I wasn't trying to get stuck in some job that I hated or something that wasn't like exciting or rewarding. So yeah, I studied for my test, even though my recruiters told me like, don't worry about studying, you got a 74 on the practice, and usually whatever you get on the practice, you actually end up doing a little bit better on the real test. And I ended up getting an 81 on the Asvab. They tell you your scores instantly, like the moment I told him I was done. So your score on your Asvab is not a percentage, it just tells you your percentile of other people who took the test. So basically, I got an 81, which means I scored higher than 81% of people who took the test. So to get into the Air Force, to get into any branch, the minimum is like in the 30s. It's not all the same requirement, but like it's pretty low. You can fail the ASVAB, which means you scored lower than like 30-40% of the people that took it. So then I was told to go back to medical and continue with my physical. So I was like, I'm really not eating lunch. And by the way, I know some people wonder this because I did. You get to go to the bathroom whenever you want. So I was able to use the bathroom right before I took my ASVAB. The bathroom was like right outside the testing center. And then I also used it like halfway through my test, which they were kind of frustrated with me for doing that because I didn't know that my urine test was going to be right after that. As soon as I was done with my ASVAB, I walked in there and they're like, you ready to pee in a cup? And I was like, no. I was like, but I can start chugging water. So they gave me a cup and I went to the water fountain. I was just drinking all this water, and the water is ice cold. So I was like, great. Meps is already freezing. I had long sleeves on and jeans and I was still freezing. So bring a hoodie, wear a jacket, something. You are able to go to your stuff throughout the day. You just can't bring anything out of there, especially your phone. So yeah, even if you want to layer and just like bring a jacket or a hoodie for when you get cold, you can do that. You can pretty much go to your stuff at any time. It's like in this room. I just had my backpack in a cubby and I was able to go check that whenever I wanted. So as I'm sitting there chugging water, they tell me to just wait outside to do my vision test. So there was someone in there already getting their vision test done and I was waiting to be called next. But while I'm waiting for the vision test, another doctor comes out. They're all like fighting over us at this point, whoever was left, which was not that many. I was the only one in the waiting room at this time, but all the doctors were trying to get done so that they could go home. It wasn't that late in the day at this point. Lunch was almost over. I think it was like 12:40-ish. So they were all like, oh, have you done my test yet? Have you done this test yet? Have I seen you yet? And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So the guy who draws the blood comes out while I'm sitting there freezing, shaking, chugging this cold water when I'm already cold. The testing center was cold. I was sitting there for like 2-ish hours freezing, and now they're making me chug cold water. So I'm like literally the coldest I've ever been in my life, like physically shaking. And he's like, okay, come in, I'm gonna draw your blood. And I'm like, okay. Needles don't bother me. Blood doesn't really bother me. I just look away and it's over. It takes 2 minutes. I've gotten tattoos, so it's all right. I wasn't afraid of that, but I was like, oh my gosh, I have never been shaking like this so bad in my life from being cold. So now I'm afraid he's gonna like miss my vein. So this doctor was the same doctor that did my blood pressure, and then he like lifted my sleeve up and looked at my arms, and he kind of like shook his head, and I was like, uh-oh. So he went and got the other doctor. And this was the same doctor that came into the medical briefing earlier and told me that I had perfect hearing, so I was like, I like this guy. So that doctor came in, and the first doctor told him, he's like, hey, this girl is so dainty, I can't find a vein. And I was like, oh my god. So the second doctor was like, are you cold? I'm like, I'm absolutely freezing. So he was so sweet, you guys. He literally went and got me this other cup. I don't know where he got it, but he filled it up with warm water. I don't know where he got that either. And then he also went and got me a coat, like his coat, I think. I was like, that is so nice. Like, you don't hear about stuff like this happening at Meps. So he's like wrapping me up in his coat and making me drink warm water and like giving me a minute to stop shaking. I just look away really quick and he like starts taking my blood, and he was super nice. Like, he tried to make a conversation with me. It felt like forever that he took blood. I don't know how much they took because I didn't look. But yeah, he was like asking me about one of my tattoos while he was taking it out. And yeah, he was really nice and he didn't miss my vein. You hear about people like sitting there while they try to look for a vein and stick them 5 times, or like moving the needle around in their arm, and none of that happened for me. It was super quick. I was like, yes. So at this point, the female doctor comes out and she's like, I haven't seen you yet. And I was like, no. I was like, I kind of just got here. And she's like, okay, well, I need to see you. Like, I've already seen everyone else. Like I said, everybody was like done with the day already. And I was like, it's not even 1 o'clock. So at that point, I'm ready to go pee. And I was like, okay, I've had enough water. I can pee in a cup right now. So I go to the desk. I'm like, okay, I can like do my urine test. And she's like, okay, well, you have to find a female that can watch you that's not busy right now. And I was like, there's no one here. So over the intercom, they say like 3 different people's names that need to come to the control desk, which is the front desk. And they said Willis, and I was like, are you kidding me right now? I have to pee finally. I start to walk out to go to the front desk, and she's like, where are you going? And I was like, they just called me, I'm Willis. And she's like, you can't bring your folder with you. I'm like, okay. So I gave her my folder, and then I went out. And I go to the desk and I said, hey, they just called me over the intercom. and they're like, Brittany, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then one of the taller guys that had already done a few tests with me, like the hearing test, he's like, you're Brittany? Oh my gosh, like I've been hearing them say Brittany Lynn all day. And I was like, oh my god. And he's like, yeah, you have to go get your lunch, they're about to close everything. And I was like, you guys called me up here to eat? I need a pee and a cup. That's my priority right now. So I ran in there and the girl's like, grab a tray, and I was like, are they gonna make me sit down and eat right now? I just wanna get this physical stuff over with. So I said they actually told me to bring it back in a bag. They're in a hurry to do my tests. So she gave me a bag. I threw in my sub sandwich, a bag of chips, and a water, and I just ran out of there. You have to sign off that you got your lunch. It's free too. So then I went back to medical, and she's like, you have to go put your food in your locker, or not your locker, your like cubby with your backpack and stuff. And I was like, ugh. So I went past the desk again. I threw my stuff in the cubby with my backpack, and I went back to medical again. So I said, okay, I'm ready to pee in a cup, and then I still have to do my vision test because they pulled me away from that too. It was a long day, you guys. Okay, so they tell me they'll go try to find someone who can watch me do the urine test because the female has to stand there and watch you, someone that works there. So I sat by the vision test and I was waiting for her. She finally came out, and before she called me in, they were like, oh, okay, come back here, like someone can watch you pee in a cup. I was like, thank God, I can't even wait any longer. I went in there, and it was funny because when I walked in, the lady that was gonna watch me do the urine test, I had seen her earlier at one of the desks, and she was in the Navy. She had on her Navy uniform. She was so nice too, you guys. So nice. So when I saw her at the desk earlier, I went up there to ask a question, and she's like, your eyebrows are perfect. I was like, thank you. She's like, are those real? I'm like, no, they're filled in. And she's like, they look so good. And she was so nice. Like, why was everybody so nice to me? That doesn't happen. So I walked in there and she recognized me and she's like, oh, hey girl. And I'm like, oh, hey. Like, this is so weird that you're gonna watch me pee, but let's get this over with. Your pants have to be below your knees, like all the way pulled down, whatever, you have to do it. So don't wash your hands afterwards. You're not allowed to wash your hands right away. You have to give her the cup, or give the doctor the cup. There's like a wall in the bathroom with a window, and the doctor's like in there, so the window's open, so you don't leave the bathroom. You just hand the doctor the cups through like the little, it looks like a drive-through window kind of. And right there, they test you on the spot for pregnancy. And I was like feeling good, you know, everybody was being nice to me. Like, I had passed everything so far, and I was just like making conversation, and I was like, oh, is that for the pregnancy test? And he ignored me, and I was like, the lady was still in there, and she's like, yeah, it's for the pregnancy test. And she was so sweet. Like, she was actually smiling and really nice to me. He has you like confirm that that's your pee and it's sealed and you signed for it and whatever. So they're also testing you for HIV when they're doing like blood and urine and stuff like that. So pregnancy, HIV, and I think those are the two big things they're looking for. I went back to wait for the vision test again, and the lady was ready for me, so I went in, and I knew that this was not going to be good. I don't wear glasses or contacts, but I know that I should. I know I don't see very well. So yeah, I went in there, and the first thing she did was the color blindness test, and she literally flips through it so fast because it's super easy. It's like a number within a circle, and like the circle's a different color from the numbers, but like if you're not colorblind, the number sticks out super easy to you. So you just like say the number and she flips the pages, and it's like a minute, if that. So the next test was depth perception, and I was nervous for this because I saw like other people's experiences about it, and they said about half the people fail it. It's hard, not hard, but like you either have it or you don't. So you can either see that there's one circle that's different or you can't. So I pretty much knew I was one of those that was gonna fail it, and I wouldn't be able to see which circle was different because I was like Googling tests before I went, and I was like, okay, they literally all look identical. I think it was like A, B, C, D, E, F. There's like all these groups of circles, and they show you all the circles all at the same time. So I didn't feel like that helped. So we started with group A, line 1, and you just go line by line telling her which one pops out at you. I did like 4 lines in group A, and she stopped me, and I was like, did I fail? And she's like, no, it's okay. And I was like, did I get them all right? And she's like, not really. I'm like, okay. So then she like moves quickly on to the next thing, like the actual vision test where you just read the rows of letters and numbers and stuff. And I was like, what just happened? So moving on to the actual vision test, you just read the smallest line you can. She started me with number 9, which was really far down there. They want to see if you can read like the super small ones. Couldn't see it at all. She's like, how about 8? And I was like, I can try. I can't really see it that well. So I tried. I must have not done very well. I read a couple other lines, and then she put them, like, you start with the ones in front of you, but then she'll also do like lower ones because she wants to see if you're like nearsighted or farsighted, like what you, basically what you're worse at. She kept telling me like there was something wrong with my left eye, and I was like, I didn't know that. So then she had me put just my left eye into this machine where like there was a picture of a hot air balloon like focusing and defocusing, and I was just supposed to look at it. She didn't tell me to look just at the hot air balloon, so I was like waiting for her to tell me that it was starting, and I was just kind of like looking around and waiting. And she's like, stop moving your eye. And I was like, oh, I didn't know we were starting. So then I just locked into the hot air balloon and waited for her to tell me to move. And she's like, yeah, your left eye is not good. She's like, your right eye is totally fine, but your left eye's bad. And I was like, that's really weird, but okay. She's like, you don't wear glasses or contacts? I'm like, no. She's like, you probably should. So now I'm afraid they're gonna give me those weird, crazy glasses in basic. Also, when I was looking at that machine with just my left eye, I didn't know if there was like air that was gonna come out. I don't know if you guys have been to an eye doctor, but sometimes when they're testing your eyes, they'll make you put your eye in this machine and it like blows air into it. So that's why I was like afraid to look straight at it, and I was looking around.